Have you wondered why KingJivs Transport is losing routes? Well, I have that answer for you. This all started back in July 2025 when KingJivs Transport won the 480 from the iconic TBGL Transit. KingJivs Transport signed a contract with TBGL Transit that they would use double-deckers on the 480. And that they did until the Beddington Lane fire. Why was this so significant? Well, at the time, that was KingJivs Transport's only garage that they could store the ALX 400 double-deckers. And unfortunately, all of them burned in the fire. This was a massive revenue dump for KingJivs Transport, and the leftover resources were limited, so they had no choice but to use single-deckers on all of their routes, including the 480. The Beddington Farm fire plunged KingJivs Transport into a lot of debt, as the ALX 400s comprised of 2/3 of the whole fleet. So understandably, residents were angry as they were promised double-deckers on the very busy 480. And KingJivs Transport kept on insisting that the Enviro 200s on the 480 that they recently just got, might I add, were a temporary allocation. And just to add, the 480 was extended, which meant an increase in PVR, digging into the limited resources they already had. So essentially, they were breaking the contract they signed with TBGL Transit, and for precisely 4 months. KingJivs Transport had ever routes that were very busy, some not, some are. But the point is, they had ever routes to deal with that were being affected by the allocation change. It didn't help that the Enviro 200s would frequently break down whilst en route, and that meant frequent Celt rails, which was particularly not good for residents travelling on routes 150, 338, 361, 416 and once again 480. Plus the manager wasn't doing anything constructive. So residents, fed up with KingJivs Transport's inconsistency, decided to take advantage of TBGL Transit's Route 445 and KingJivs Company's various routes. And once again, this led to a massive loss of revenue for KingJivs Transport. And then an admin that had enough of not getting paid decided to sabotage the company. This particular admin caused a data breach, which caused KingJivs Transport to lose data on 15 of their routes, which caused a suspension of all those routes. Residents were then notified of the suspension of all 15 of those routes. After almost a couple months later, KingJivs Transport managed to get it together, and the 15 routes were eventually restored, and the admin that sabotaged the company was promptly fired. When the routes were restored, residents noticed changes, like, for example, Route 402 used to link Selhurst and Beddington, only to be extended to Selhurst Park and the Beddington end completely withdrawn. Residents around Beddington and Selhurst were outraged that the 402 was turned into a mere shuttle route. So William Travel took advantage of this and decided to create the 458, which would part replace the withdrawn section of 402. And a more minor change, the 464 was cut back to Thornton Heath High Street. This change was enforced to limit the number of buses crossing Thornton Heath High Street. Then Jaden's Transport shut down for good, and KingJivs Transport had to take in a bunch of their routes, which meant more buses had to be used, and it was quite overwhelming for KingJivs Transport, and especially for their drivers. Then KingJivs Transport drivers came to Giovanni himself, and they were complaining that the new manager of KingJivs Transport was basically running the company into the ground. After more complaints from residents and drivers, and TBGL threatening to take back the 480, Giovanni knew he had a decision to make, and that decision was for KingJivs Company to start running the 480. And the various other routes that were the most affected by the manager's negligence. Giovanni was already dealing with KingJivs Company and the William Travel situation getting out of hand, and helping Kenlock buses recover from the Beddington Farm fire. Approaching mid-January 2026, William Travel Route 409 and the 480 were successfully transferred to KingJivs Company, which was supported by residents and excited bus enthusiasts. Eventually, KingJivs Transport were losing more routes, such as the 464 and the 232, and as of recently, routes 338 and 209, and N106 was renumbered 106 and won by KingJivs Company. Shortly after the 464 and the 232 wins, KingJivs Company also gained the 459 and the majority of William Travel's routes, with the exception of Route 488 going to Orca Transport buses. After losing all their routes and their drivers, William Travel shut down. Not too long after that, William Travel was then bought and rebranded to Gamer Buses. Looking over the situation, Giovanni decided to take control back over KingJivs Transport. To summarize all of that, KingJivs Transport made some awful decisions, and it didn't help that they were under new management, and that same management was running the company into the ground. Drivers were throwing fits and quitting, residents were complaining, routes were being mistreated, and KingJivs Transport's reputation was destroyed. And all of this started because Giovanni trusted someone else with his company,